Hey everybody, and welcome back to Sail and Chat number 22. This is the post New York City, post Let's Battle tour video. Actually, it's a day later than I would have wanted, but I had to spend an extra day recovering from that trip. It was draining, to say the least. So I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the beginning, go all the way to the end, and just tell you sort of everything that I remember happening. And if I forget anything, I apologize. So, oh, and by the way, there are some goodies to be given away as well. So, I'll sort of talk about that near the end of the video, I guess. All right, so yeah, the trip. So, it was an early morning flight to New York. Actually, it wasn't to New York, it was actually to Newark, New Jersey. Super early morning flight, 6 a.m. in the morning. So I was at the airport at like 3:30. I went a little early this time, actually, maybe a little bit too early. But hey, I was the first one through security, first one through border control. That was super fast. I was through both of the things in like 10 minutes. Maybe not even. It was like, yeah, I just kind of breezed through both of them. And last year when I was going to TwitchCon, I remember going like to the airport 2 hours before my flight. And I almost missed it. So this time I was like, I'm not doing that again. I'm just going to make sure I get there super early and can be on my way. Yeah, a little bit too early maybe. So anyways, I was sitting around the airport, not doing anything, really just sort of reading Facebook and talking to a few people online. Didn't get any sleep, which is it's actually going to kill me. I now kind of regret not having slept much that day, because the next 36 hours would be pretty brutal. So, anyhow, hopped the flight, went to Newark. By the way, if I'm ever flying to New York again, I'm never flying to New York. God, that airport does not agree with me, by the way. Like, oh, it just didn't agree with me at all. Like, at first it was okay. I mean, you get to the airport, I could not find where the hotel shuttle was, because apparently you had to take an air train to a parking lot before you were able to get on a shuttle bus. So, like, that really confused me, because I was so used to just landing, walking to the arrival section, and there would be a section for hotel shuttles. Not in this case. All the way over at a parking lot. So I had to take a SkyTrain over there. That SkyTrain, by the way, would kill me later on. Anyways, so got to the hotel nice and early, can't check in, so, had breakfast, and it was like an egg omelet, but God, breakfast was also super expensive. Like, I guess it is New York, or maybe it was just a hotel restaurant, I don't know. Anyways, alright, so couldn't check in. Hotel was actually super nice, though, I have to say. Like, not that the hotel itself was a super fancy one, but like the staff were really, really nice. I mean, I'd arrived early and they were very accommodating, so I was able to get checked in around 11, and I did manage to squeeze in about an hour worth of a nap in there, and that was going to become a very valuable nap, because I really didn't get that much sleep on this trip. And yeah, I mean, the amount of walking and standing and everything, along with no sleep, just was murderous. So, eventually got up and decided to head to the Intrepid. And by the way, the trip from Newark to, like, New York, and then, like, the walking to the carrier, I think that was at least an hour, hour and a half almost. I don't know. It was pretty long, pretty brutal just to have to do that. Like, I don't know, I think I had to do that twice in one day, and then I had to do it almost again the next day, although it wasn't to the carrier, it was to another place. But yeah, pretty crazy. Now that I think about it, I should have taken a cab. Really would have saved me a lot of energy. So, yeah, remember to do that next time. Anyway, so yeah, and this is a little bit from the Intrepid. This is captured from one of my cameras. And I'm actually really glad that I went on this particular trip. Not because, I actually got to see a museum, which is fantastic, but because I was actually able to work out a lot of the technical issues, because there's all these tech things that, you've got to deal with, and unless you actually do it out in the real world, you don't know how it's going to work. So for me, I was able to figure out a lot of issues. So, like how sound would work, what is ideal, what isn't ideal, and all that. So I'm actually really glad that I did this whole thing. Speaking of audio, I mean, those of you who watched the Breakfast with the Devs video, you know that there were some serious audio issues there, and just because I didn't have the right equipment. Now, I've started to remedy that. I've bought some new things, and in the future, if I run into that again, hopefully it is better. But until I actually get the equipment and try it out, I won't really know. So yeah, hope for the best, right? Anyways, talking a bit more about the actual Intrepid visit, at least the initial bit. So yeah, I mean the island of the Intrepid. If you're on the outside, it looks pretty big. Then you get in there and it's not big at all. It's actually really cramped. That's like the thing with these ships, by the way, is that they'll look huge on the outside, and then you go in and you're like, not really all that big. And I think a lot of it does have to do with the way that ships are designed and built. Is that if you look at it historically and you look at the design documents, it's like every single thing they could possibly try to save weight on, they will try to save weight on. So, that's what happens. Is it's just like they cram everything into really, really small spaces. So, anyways, what else was I going to talk about? Oh God, brain just went. The light bulb went off, and all of a sudden the ideas just kind of stop flowing, and you don't really know what you're going to talk about in it for a second. Oh, right. So yeah, I mean, in case you noticed that the actual walkthrough is a little bit rushed, it was because I was like, again, I was a derp. I was a derp. I had this camera on my head, and I was walking around the ship, and the first time I did it, I totally forgot to push the record button. So it walked through the whole ship, top to bottom, and finally got to the end of it. Thought I was pressing the button to stop the recording, and then decided, you know what, I'm going to check to see what I had recorded the previous time. Took the camera off my head, looked at it, and went, oh, I didn't record anything at all. So had to do the entire walkthrough. Again, by then it was starting to get a little bit on the later side. Ship is not a small ship, by the way. I mean, she is still pretty big, and there's a lot of places that you have to walk through. And it does take time, right? It does take quite a bit of time. So, of course, this was the second run through, and I'm trying my best to make sure that I look at everything all over again. And it's sometimes hard when you're doing it for the second time. It's like you got to constantly remind yourself. It's like, hey, you gotta look at this room again because you looked at it the first time and you didn't capture it. So, try my best. Anyways, on the Intrepid, and by the way, there was actually a submarine there, but it was under renovations, I believe, at the time. So, unfortunately, no submarine footage, only the carrier. So, anyways, that was the island area, and there we go. This is the exit. Okay, so back onto the flight deck. Now, on the flight deck, on the Intrepid Museum, they've parked a whole bunch of aircraft, but the actual rear of the carrier, they've kind of sealed off. You can't really go see it because it's where they've put a space shuttle. So you've only got access really to the sort of forward part of the carrier with the planes that they have, I guess in this forward half. Some of the planes really, really like. Some of them just don't really care for. I mean, I'm selective when it comes to airplanes. This F8 though, mind you, I really do like that plane. I don't know why. I like the plane. It looked cool to me ever since I was a kid. I like the F8. Also like the F14, but that's on like the other side of the flight deck, and you'll see me slowly walk my way over there. And yeah, if you get a chance and you happen to be in New York, I mean, you should definitely swing by this museum and check it out. It's definitely worth a visit. All right, so before we get into the evening bits, because this is the part where the event hasn't happened yet. I'm just on the ship by myself, but later on, we're gonna get, I guess, the museum's gonna close. We're gonna get kicked off the carrier. We're gonna get told to move back outside to, I guess, the front of the museum, and then just line up. Although I was able to get in a little bit early. But we'll get to that in a second. Now, there's something else I want to, I guess, talk about, because I don't think I'm going to fully go to it at the end of the video and talk about it again, and that's really the breakfast with the devs thing. Now, again, the audio was really bad, and like I said, I apologize for that. It wasn't intentional. So I guess let's talk about the highlights, really, like things that are in the video, at least the too long. Don't want to listen to the really crappy audio version. So there is a carrier rework coming in 2017, and they're just gonna do the entire rework first before they try to get back balance, right? So with the current sort of imbalance between the USN and the IJNCVs, that unfortunately I think is going to stay until at least next year. Now, I've definitely communicated to the devs that I think imbalanced squadrons and imbalanced plane numbers is not a good idea, and I think that just makes it way too hard to balance. So, who knows? I mean, they seemed open to the idea of maybe just making it all even squadron numbers and even plane numbers, and just going with plane differences as a way of balancing. So that might be something that they're wanting to do. The big thing, of course, for them is that they don't want to do work over and over again, right? So they don't want to, like, let's say, try to start to do some balancing on carriers and then revamp the entire system and then having to redo the balance all over again. So that seems to be the objective now with carriers. 2017 is going to be a series of reworks, and hopefully by the end of 2017, carriers are going to be in a better place. So there's that. There was conversations regarding high explosive. Now, my suggestion with HE was that instead of HE being the super rewarding, very, very low-skilled ammo that it is right now, that HE eventually turns into something that requires you to actually aim for certain parts of the ship, right? So as sections get damage saturated, the damage taken from fires, or even the chance of fires themselves, starts to decrease on a curve. And then, as the area gets hammered more and more, the chances of fires drops to near zero. And of course, the actual fire damage, if it does happen, is also very, very low. So in that sense, it might force ships to actually start aiming for other sections of the ship, the bow, the stern, and not just always going, oh, look, we're just going to hammer the middle area. And that idea seemed to have been received well. So again, it's an idea, it's been pitched. We're not sure if it's gonna happen, but hey, it's better than not having ideas and not, having anything to say. So that's another one about whatchamacallit, the high explosive. There was another idea that I threw out there regarding the way that the U.S. cruisers get access to potentially the current form of defensive fire, and they're the only ones that get it. Because right now, if you look at the game, pretty much the U.S. has nothing that it does better than anybody else. Everybody else has things that they do better than the U.S., but the U.S. just doesn't really get anything. So, hoping that maybe we see something like this happen in the future. Again, Dev was receptive to this particular idea, and it was not something they've thought about. So, hey, who knows, right? Could be something. And, but it's all ideas, it's all suggestions that was thrown out there. There was a section of the video that I don't think was present at the time, at least in the Breakfast with the Devs video, because the audio was even worse than what was actually there. I don't know why, but it was terrible. It was basically you couldn't hear it. And it was about ranked. Now, from what I'm starting to hear, again, is that they are thinking of potentially reworking the way that ranked stars are handed out. Don't know. It's they're looking at it again, wanting to make it probably a little bit better than it is in the current system. I heard something like maybe top 3 players keep their star. I offered a suggestion about maybe giving players that accomplish certain awards, those battle awards. Maybe they get to keep one in addition to the person in first place. So those are some ideas that were thrown out there. There was an idea about potentially doing multi, it's like multiple different league multiple different league tiers. There we go, tiers. So like you'd have like a bronze tier, silver tier, and a gold tier. But while that idea would have been okay on RU, according to the developer, the NA population doesn't really seem to work. There's just not enough people on the NA server for that particular system to be implemented. So probably not much going in that particular direction. Is there anything else? I'm just trying to think. I'm just doing my absolute best to try to think about. Just trying to think. Oh, by the way, F-14 is like amazing, right? Yeah, I just kind of stared at her for a while. She was pretty plain, very, very pretty. I think that was really it. Unfortunately, I didn't really get time to go through everything, that I wanted to. Was in a really, really big rush in that breakfast, just because I had a flight that I absolutely had to catch. Oh God, yeah, I'll talk about the flight in a second too. But I guess I'll get to that. No, should I talk about it now? Yeah, you know what? I'll talk about it now before I get to the event. So yeah, I mean, initially I was supposed to just attend this event, this Let's Battle tour, visit the carrier, and then I was supposed to be back at the airport and catch a flight at 6 a.m. the next morning. Didn't really know about the whole breakfast with the devs thing. Then it happened, so I had to get a flight change. So, I called the airline and said, hey, I would like to get a flight change. How much is it going to be? They're like, it's going to be $200 to change the flight. But if you actually go to the airport, it'll be cheaper. Okay, so what time do I have to go to the airport to change it? Well, as long as you go after 12, you should be fine. Okay. Notice that there was no mention of, what times they're open, what times you should actually go there. Nothing. Just, you got to be there before 12. All right. So, after the whole event was done, the event finished just around 11 something is when it was done. So I went back all the way to New York, that was, I guess you go back to the train station, take the train, then take the air train to the actual terminal. Mind you, the air train was under maintenance, so it was super, super slow. I think to go like from just the train station to the actual terminal that I was trying to get there, it took me almost about in excess of half an hour, I think. Right. So got there, and no, there was just absolutely no airline staff in sight at all. So by the time I got over there to New York, got to the thing, it was like 2 o'clock to 2:30, I think, almost in the morning. Got there, nobody in sight. Nobody at Air Canada said anything about it, but yeah. So that was a bit of a bummer. So eventually had to go back to the hotel, had to get up at 4 to go back to the airport because the flight's at 6 and you don't want to like, let's say, miss your flight, because then you forfeit basically a bunch of stuff. Yeah. So went back to the airport, had to change my flight, had to change it to a little bit later on or the next day, but later on would have been ideal. But tried to change my flight, and yeah, they were like, if you don't leave on the 2:10 flight, you're not getting out until the next day because the other 2 flights are way overbooked. So I was like, yeah, okay, that's doable. 2:10, 1:30 they start boarding. So I'm looking at the train schedule. I'm like, ooh, okay. So the event with the developers lasts until 12. There's 2 trains departing. One at 12, I think 07, the other one like 12:17. And if I miss that one, the next one's at like 1 o'clock. So yeah, I mean, mass panic, right? I'm trying to make it. I'm trying to get out of there, like right on the perfect time, get to the train station, catch the train. Because if I miss the 2 trains, because of New York traffic, because again, like New York traffic is totally unpredictable, by the way. And I just, wasn't 100% sure like how long it would take, right? So yeah, absolutely was in in a rush the whole day. Never mind the fact that I was exhausted, because in the whole chunk of time, I think I gotten maybe 3 hours of sleep. I got think about 3 hours of sleep. And yeah, and that combined with of course the fact that walking all day, walking around the carrier all day, standing all day. Yeah, it was brutal. Oh, and I had to do that while carrying a pack too, so just absolutely dying at the end of it. So yeah, that was pretty painful. I was actually really, really hard. Like, now that I sort of go back and watch the Breakfast with the Devs video, I was really hard on them. Maybe even a bit harking on them a little bit. But I was just trying to get off everything on my mind as quickly as possible, just because. Yeah, I wasn't in the greatest places there. I wasn't in the greatest state of mind. Wasn't the greatest state, period, actually. But at least I think I got the information out. Oh, and I know those of you are probably gonna say, but you ignored Dasha too. I know, I did. I think we all did. We're so keen on talking ships, we totally kind of ignored her. But don't worry. I am gonna be sending her some maple syrup. With an apology card or something. As soon as they get back to Russia, I will send them off, some of that. Okay. Alrighty, so as you can tell by this point in time in the footage, you'll notice that it's kind of already getting close to sundown. I was really trying to get through the ship as quickly as possible. Like I said, it's not a small ship; it's a pretty big ship, and having actually missed because I'm such a potato, having actually missed pressing the record button, I had to really run through sort of everything all over again. And that was just... kind of sucked. I'm just trying to get through everything as quickly as possible. There was a gunfire control director. This is actually a 20mm Oerlikon, although I think there's some parts actually missing on it. But hey, you can kind of still see what it is. And then, of course, on the other side, yeah, it does still swing around, but you can't really, yeah. There's no like sights or anything like that, so that's a bit unfortunate. Kind of a cool little, cool little AA gun. And then, of course, on the other side, there's a 5-inch gun, which is this one over here, and then there's another 40mm Bofors gun after that. And that's pretty much I guess that's pretty much the actual ship itself, as well as some random stuff about the developer breakfast, and of course my crazy continuously running around trying to change my darn flight and trying to get that all done. That was just, ugh. I'm never going back to New York again. Like, New York was a bit of a pain in the ass. Oh, and by the way, speaking of which, so when I actually forgot to say this, when I actually went back to the counter the next morning, or at like 4 o'clock the next morning, and asked about when they were actually having staff there, the airline was like, oh, well, I mean, the person who's working there at the counter was like, oh, they didn't tell you? By 8:30, we're all gone. It's just like, come on. Why couldn't somebody tell me that on the damn phone so I didn't have to go there at like 2 in the morning? Could have gone to the hotel, got some sleep. See, had I done that, might have actually felt quite a bit better. Fortunately, didn't get much sleep, dead tired, yeah. And by the time I actually got back to Toronto, oh god, I think I slept most of the first day I got back, like 16 hours straight, and then even yesterday when I was trying to get this video done, it was just like, nope, just way too tired. So I ended up sleeping for a good 12 hours again, I think. So, but hey, at least I feel better today, so, that's a positive. And I'm going to get this video done. I promise. I'm going to try to get it done ASAP. So here I am taking some photos of this 40mm gun, by the way, and it was a nice thing to take photos of, actually. You'd be surprised. Actually, there are going to be, I think, 2 photos that are going to come up. So once this was all done, and we were through with at least I was through with the walking around the ship bit, we all had to go back to the front of the museum because the museum closed up, and now we had to join the crowd in front. And by the way, speaking of that particular crowd, and by the way, here are the photos, by the way. That was the one where I was, I guess, leaning in, trying to take a picture through the sights. Wasn't perfect. I should have lined it up better, but it was a bit of an awkward angle, and with a huge backpack, it just didn't really work, but you get the idea, right? You get the idea. And then, of course, yeah, you'll see how, pretty much it was sunset already, and so, I mean, this is kind of a cool shot. I like it. I think that was one of the nicer photos I took on the day. So with the closure of the museum, we all got kicked out, and we were all told to essentially wait out here for entry for the Let's Battle tour. Now at the beginning, there were already people out here, although more World of Tanks people than World of Warships people. I mean, there were some Warships players out here, but it was mostly World of Tanks, and there were even quite a bit of Blitz people. I guess it was because there was an event going on, or a tournament going on the next day, so a lot of Blitz and Tanks people. Still, there were a couple of Warship people, and of course, No Zoo for You. And for those of you who don't know who he is, he's another World of Warships contributor. If you want to go check him out, it's No Zoop for You, spelled with a Z. That's kind of supposed to be like No Soup for You, but I guess Z worked better for him. Anyways, once the line started to form, I mean, this is a little bit later on. I mean, this is the number of people that kind of were there at the event. Actually, I think there was more. I mean, this was the lineup, right? This was the lineup. Everybody's just waiting to go in, and we're just hanging there with some of the wargaming people. Inside, there were obviously computers for gaming, although as you noticed, the back 2 rows were World of Tanks. The front row was World of Warships. Again, kind of the ratio that we were seeing. Oh, speaking of something really, really funny. We got t-shirts, right? Like these Let's Battle shirts, and at the back of them, they had these logos. So I got a shirt that had, everybody got a shirt that got this logo at the back, where you have the World of Tanks logo, the World of Warships logo, and the World of Tank Blitz logo. No World of Warplanes at all. So later on, as people came in, this is kind of how the setup worked. You lined up, You try to get in some games. You know, there was some mingling. You walk around. You just kind of sit at tables and chilled with people. I kind of was ninja'd into a lot of random groups of worships players and said hi to people. Nobody knew who it was, which is kind of cool. It was just a way of sneaking in, right? And of course, there's Victor Kisley, by the way. I didn't actually get to say hi to the guy, but yeah, he was there. He gave a cool speech about how he started, I guess, so that was pretty chill. I mean, maybe I'll throw up a clip of that a bit later on. And then, of course, Dasha was signing autographs. People are lined up for her to sign some autographs. There she is, and there's no Zoop again. And for those of you who actually want to get a hold of one of these, I've got a couple of them to give away, by the way, these Dasha prints with the signature. So if you want them, leave a comment in the comment section below telling me you're interested in during another video. Just pick some random winners. Although that might be until I get back from vacation. We'll have to see. Zoop also has a couple to give away as well, so do make sure to check him out as well for better chances at winning one of these signed autographed photos. Actually, speaking of World of Warships players, I did actually catch the first bunch that actually got on the computers and were playing Warships. So, you know, took a photo of them. Hi, Warships players. It's good to have met you guys, or at least some of you guys in person, I think, I hope. Anyways, okay, moving on. As usual from sort of wargaming events, they did give away a bunch of stuff. Like, there was a lot of mice being given away. There was a couple of headphones being given away. There's some controllers for like the Blitz crowd. They even gave away like one gaming laptop, which was pretty awesome for the guy that won it. And, you know, if you didn't get any of those things, I mean, you at least picked up a pretty cool t-shirt and a pretty wicked hat. Actually, I really, really like the hat. I mean, it's not really a baseball cap. It just kind of was. It's what Pigeon's wearing right now. It's like one of those lower. I don't even know how to describe that. Like the part that sticks out isn't as much. I don't know. Just really cool hat. Really, really comfy. And of course, during giveaways, people were pretty stoked. Not nearly as crazy as when they actually started to give away things for warships, though. They were actually giving away Nikolai's and Grimyashis. Actually, I have a clip for that. Hold on, let me pull that up for y'all.
Nikolai, Grimyashi, until I run out. Beach. So who actually plays ships? Show me. Hold on a second. Where were you guys a couple moments ago? When I actually played ships? More liars? Or you're all cheating? Alright, sorry. Alright, so who wants a Nikolai? Go ahead, and when I pick you, if I pick you, you'll see our lovely Miss Kelly James over there. All right. So now I have a Grimyashi. I see you with the two hands up in the back. Going all Hulk Hogan. Yeah, you. Come on.
He's not coming up. He's coming over.
He's going like to an angle. You know what I'm saying? All right, so that was a Tier 5 Russian destroyer. I have a Tier 4 battleship that I need to give away. Who's getting that? Are you not entertained? Who wants a Nikolai? You! Go get your battleship.
And that was actually the first few that Pigeon gave away. Just as he got closer to like the later few, people were getting even crazier. I mean, there was one guy, apparently his friends like lifted him up and everything. Unfortunately, Pigeon picked the guy next to him. I felt bad for him, I really did. But yeah, anyways. And then, of course, there's always, you know, oh, by the way, and there's always food and drinks at these wargaming events. Like, you know, there's these sliders. I believe there was cheeseburger, turkey, and veggie. The cheeseburger was okay, but the turkey was amazing. I had a bunch of those. So there was free food and free drinks. I felt really bad for the guys at the drink station, though, because, like, they weren't as active as I thought they might have been. I remember going to TwitchCon, there were these crazy lines where just people just waiting to get drinks, but here it's just seemed super chilled. I think people were just, I don't know, more into the gaming or just into the chatting. I don't know. Anyways, food, drinks, phenomenal. You know, Wargaming really knows how to throw a party, by the way. And you know, if you're ever near one of these, like, you absolutely 100% should go there. And if I ever happen to be there, try to find me, by the way. Try to find me. There's certain nice things about finding me, by the way. I can't really tell you what that is, though. I'll leave that up as a sort of a mystery thing. You guys can figure it out when you actually do find me in some future event. And mind you, it wasn't just giveaways, food, drinks, and playing some games. I mean, there was actually other things too. There was like these flight simulators that you could go on, and people actually lined up for them. I think they normally you would get charged if you went to the actual museum for it, but it was free that night, so people lined up for that. There were also docent tours on the ship, which I didn't actually have time for any of those, unfortunately. I spent most of my time talking to people, chatting. It was good because I was able to ninja into a lot of different groups, and not a lot of people knew who I was, which was kind of interesting. I mean, they knew who I was, they just didn't know what I looked like, so I was able to sort of sneak in, have very good conversations with them, and it was like half an hour later, halfway through the conversation, be like, hey, is that who I think it is? And then, of course, there'd be that moment. But it was pretty cool. Got to have some good conversations with people. I do have to say, I do apologize for the video quality in certain places. The action cam that I have is apparently not very good in low light conditions, which is, you're in a dark hangar with these lights. It's not very good, so apparently it does struggle to produce good quality videos. So I'll know that in the future when I go into low light, I'll just use my actual camera instead. It might just produce better results. And that pretty much does it for the actual event itself. I mean, again, you'll see certain places where there's actually more people and certain places there's less. I mean, I kind of screwed up the order of the videos, I guess. Anyway, so, yeah, so, I mean, the event went until about 11 o'clock, then went back to Newark, went to the airport first, then hotel, then the airport again, then hotel again. Yeah, killed me, And by that time, I'd been on my feet for like 20-something hours, plus all the walking. So yeah, I was just dying everywhere. But anyways, I mean, that wraps up the first day. Of course, the next morning was the developer breakfast. So after that pretty damn awesome evening, we got breakfast with the devs, which really was donuts with the devs. And I mean, these were the donuts. They were like the biggest things I've ever seen. They were huge. I was really hoping to get something savory, and there were all these things. They all look super sweet. I got lucky. I picked this chocolate-coated one. I was like, you know what? If anything, I'm just going to have a chocolate-coated one. So I grabbed this chocolate-coated donut. It was actually really nice because there was actually like salt sprinkled into it. So it wasn't actually all that sweet for a donut. I mean, that's fair, right? I mean, there was salt sprinkled on it, so I guess it wasn't that sweet. Anyways, so before we got to the actual sit down and talk to the devs part, they got on stage and they sort of did a bit of a presentation. No, not really a presentation. They just sat down and they sort of talked about where the game was going and, things like that. So I've cut out some of the Warships highlights. I mean, really, there's the whole thing that lasted almost like an hour, but a lot of it was like, World of Tanks and stuff. So, here are some Warship stuff, so listen in.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's the very first day of the game. Philip?
Yeah. So I think it's a very exciting time for our game because, by the time we have core gameplay quite ready, and now we are going to add more content, more features, both for more casual players and hardcore players. From the latest updates, I think it's worth mentioning the British cruiser line. It was very skill dependent, but very peculiar and interesting line of ships. And then we had also a Hello event. We had to escort a ship with players. That was a cooperative event. It was very good. It was accepted by all regions, and I think it's a good step to expanding cooperative modes. So very exciting times for the project now.
Well, that's great. I think it's fantastic. But we're not just here for Pravda. We're also here for thinking about the things that we could do better. So we should at least roll. I'm going to start with you again and come back here. When you look back at where we got, where are the sort of bits where you go, perhaps we didn't do as well there as we should, or things we learned, or missteps we had, just so people can realize, just how much passion there is in the dev side. For ships?
Yeah, but I think there are two things, and they're connected with game balance. First is the carrier class. CVs are not in the best state currently. It's a very different class. I think it's even more different than artillery and tanks. It gives you strategic gameplay, like real-time strategy, and we have some interface flaws and some balance issues that prevents players from learning this class. So we want more average CV players, more average middle class for CVs, and that's one thing. And another thing, I think there's some tendency to the overpopulated battleships metagame right now. We're monitoring it, but we see some issues between battleships and cruiser balance. I think we have to improve this.
And then for ships, the stuff you're happy with?
Okay, so I think the main thing about this year, we moved the development cycle to be much shorter. Those of you who play World of Warships probably remember that we launched major updates like every 2 months or so. Then we understood that our game is quite young and we need to pack lots of features, so we moved to like 3-week cycle, and now we release major update every 3 weeks. That allows us to bring more features. We implemented many popular solutions from mods to interface. We added new lines like German battleships, very popular and nice line, I think. And we added weather effects, not only the effects, but gameplay weather, which actually brings much diversity to high-tier matches. And we're not going to stop, of course.
I also think on Warships, I think first of all the UI is wonderful, but also the game has now been fattened out by the extra lines, which I think is tremendous, and the crates. The loot crate thing, I think. Containers, I think that's absolutely fantastic. You know, I think there's a lot of stuff to be really, really happy about. The PvE on ships, I think, is really strong, and you know, you're definitely at the forefront of where we are, looking at what it can do and how it can do and how it can drive. The event you had for Halloween was also a way of testing and expanding your PvE system. So I think there's a lot to be really happy about where ships has gone. So that's great for the past. But as we're all rabid players, it's also kind of cool, and I know this is very difficult. I'm really allowed to talk about where they're going until we're ready to talk about it. But I did ask them if they could just bring snippets, clues, or maybe tell us when we can find out about, you know, new exciting things on ships going forward.
Lots of stuff about the World of Warships. So we don't plan to slow down our ship production cycle, and we're planning to release new lines even this year. I think you already know these lines, Japanese destroyers and German destroyers. And then we would like to produce 5 more lines in the next year and 2 more researchable nations. In terms of ships, there will be much more ships diversity in the game. We also would like to focus on creating a tight schedule of events for ranked battles, maybe cooperative modes, some fun missions, some campaigns probably. So we want that every time, at every moment, you can do something exciting in World of Warships, something different. So I think that will be a very tight schedule of events next year. And we also want to focus on clans, of course, because we don't have any clan support in our game right now, but we're already testing a 4-stage clan solution. So there will be probably some social aspect of clans, like clan tag, clan chat, and so on. Then we want to introduce some casual clan gameplay, so you can just, you know, hang around with friends and do something in the game, but without much hardcore gameplay. And then we move to probably some clan versus clan environment, and even maybe to strategic gameplay like global map.
Did you want to talk about aircraft carriers?
Yeah, we'll fix them.
Yeah, but actually, I mean, if you don't mind talking about it, it was very interesting when we talked about it before. Can you just give the people who are interested in aircraft carriers your view on aircraft carriers? I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, sure. So the problem of carriers is quite complex. It consists of several issues. First one is, I think, interface flaws. I already spoke about that. And we also have some balance issues between nations and between tiers, because as you probably know, carriers on low tiers tend to be a tremendous force in a player's hands, and then it gets harder and harder with tier growth. We want to resolve all these problems, but we actually want to take it slow, because it's not just, you know, nerfing or buffing some ships, it's like kind of rework of the whole class.
No, that's good. And then the difference between the bombing runs and the strafing and the enjoyment levels and all that stuff. I'm very happy to hear that aircraft carriers are getting locked out. It is tremendous, but it's very difficult for me. I struggle. But with that in mind, listening to players, knowing what players want, feedback and that, it's very important. It's how we help frame out our features. Right now, what are the best methods, I mean, as a group, what are the best methods to players to give us feedback? And then for ships, you do that, but you also do big data, right?
Yeah, we try to make our solutions as much data influenced as we can, but there are always 2 aspects. So we have lots of data. Actually, everything you do in our game, almost everything is logged, and then we have different stats of all kinds. We have not only win rate and damage, you know, we have heat maps, skill dependence graphs, and so on. But it's also very important to remember that, well, the game actually is the players, it's you. So the subjective part is very important. That's why we have forum digests from our regional forums. We also do some external community research, for example, like Reddit. And the most important thing, we also conduct surveys. So when you receive any survey by email, be sure to vote, because it's very important.
Well, yes, be sure to vote. What's your favorite element or vehicle or ship or that was supposed to fill it with for you?
No, it's very strange because I choose ships just depending on the looks. I like maybe US Navy destroyers, I like Soviet cruisers, and well, I like Montana. Sorry, I cannot be silent about it. Montana rocks.
Montana rocks, eh?
And that brings us to the close of the Sail and Chat episode. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget, if you want to enter for a chance to win one of these 2 signed photos, I think I got a couple of them to give away. Just leave a comment in the comment section below saying you're interested. And then I'll just pick a winner. Might be, I don't know, I'll try to get it done before I leave again, but if not, I'll come back and I'll do it then. Anyways, folks, hope you all have a great day. Take care, have a good one, and I'll talk to all of you again soon.